He paid for the food with fake money. But the owner's response made everyone cry. Michael Reynolds felt sweat trickling down his back as he served another packed table during the lunch rush. The restaurant was full as always, with the clatter of plates, conversations, and pots coming from the kitchen. It had been a tough day since morning. Problems with suppliers, an employee who didn't show up, and now this rush. That's when he felt someone gently tug his shirt. Looking down, he saw a little girl with red eyes holding a crumpled bill in her hand. The child couldn't have been more than 8 years old, with brown hair tied in a simple ponytail and a white t-shirt that had seen better days. "Mister, I wanted to buy a meal box," said the girl, her voice trembling. Michael took a deep breath, trying to control his irritation. This wasn't the time for that. He had 15 tables waiting, and the kitchen was running behind. "Wait over there at the counter, little one. I'll help you in a moment." But the girl didn't move. She stretched out her hand with the bill, insisting, "Please, mister, it's for my grandma. She's sick and hasn't eaten for 3 days." Something in the child's desperate voice made Michael stop. He took the bill without really looking at it and went to the cash register, still thinking about all the things he needed to handle. He ran the bill through the verification machine he had installed a few months ago after losing money to counterfeit bills. The machine beeped. Red. Michael felt the blood rush to his head. He took the bill again, held it up to the light, ran his hand over the paper. There was no doubt. It was fake, and a bad one at that. The kind that anyone even slightly attentive would notice. "This is fake money." His voice came out louder than he intended. The entire restaurant seemed to fall silent. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Forks hung in the air. All eyes turned to the counter where the girl stood, now with tears starting to stream down her face. "I didn't know, mister. I swear I didn't know." The child's voice came out in sobs. "How could you not know? Where did you get this money?" Michael was upset, thinking about all the times he had been cheated, about how hard he worked to keep that place running. "It was in my grandma's drawer. It's the only money we have." Emily was crying heavily now, her words broken. "She said I could take it to buy food because she's too weak to leave the house. And you think I'm going to believe that story? How many times have people tried to trick me with fake money?" An elderly lady with grey hair stood up from one of the nearby tables. "Mister, she's just a child. Look at her size. Let me pay for her food." "You're not paying anything," Michael replied sharply, still holding the fake bill. "This is counterfeit. It's serious business." "But she's a child," insisted the lady. "And children can't be involved in wrongdoing. I've seen everything in my life, ma'am. I've seen people using children to pull scams, to steal, for all sorts of things." Emily was crying so hard she could barely speak. Her words were slurred, her nose running. "My grandma. She hasn't left the house in 3 days. Her medicine ran out and she gets really dizzy. I didn't know the money was fake, mister. I swear on my mother's life I didn't know." "And where's your mother, huh? Where's your father? Why are you here alone?" "They're working far away. They sent me to live with my grandma while they save up money in a big city." The girl choked on her words. "Please, mister. My grandma hasn't eaten anything today, nothing yesterday either. She only drinks water. I don't know what else to do." Barbara, the restaurant's longest-serving employee, who had worked there for almost 15 years, approached. She had seen Michael grow in that business, from when it was just a small counter to becoming the restaurant it was today. He knew the boss well, could tell when he was truly angry and when he was just tired and overwhelmed. "Michael," she said softly, approaching him, "the girl is telling the truth. Look at her." "Barbara, do you know how many times I've been given fake bills? Do you know how much loss that causes?" "I know. But look at the girl, Michael. Look closely." He looked, saw the swollen eyes, the red nose, the small hands trembling. The t-shirt had some stains that looked like dirt, as if the child hadn't been bathing properly for a few days. The sneakers were worn out, with the sole starting to come off. "Where do you live?" he asked, his voice still harsh. Emily sobbed before answering. "On Maple Street, number 247. It's a small blue house with a broken gate." Michael felt something strange in his chest, a feeling he couldn't identify, that address. Why did that address seem familiar? Barbara had turned pale beside him. "Michael," she whispered, "that address—" "I know," he interrupted, his voice now lower. "What do you mean, you know?" Barbara asked, confused. But Michael was staring intently at the fake bill in his hand. He turned it over and over, examining every detail. And then he saw it. In the lower right corner, almost imperceptible, there was a mark, a small red pen mark, forming a tiny X. His hands began to tremble. "Barbara, get a chair for the girl and a glass of water," he said, his voice completely different now. "What? But weren't you going to—" "Just get it, please." Barbara quickly brought a chair and placed it near the counter. Emily sat down, still sobbing, not understanding what was happening. The restaurant customers watched everything in silence, some with disapproving expressions, others feeling sorry for the child. Michael crouched down in front of the girl, at her eye level. "I'm sorry for yelling at you," he said, and his voice was different, softer. "What's your grandmother's name?" "Helen," the girl answered between sobs. "Mrs. Helen Wilson." The world seemed to stop for Michael. Helen Wilson. That name echoed in his mind like distant thunder, bringing back memories he had tried to bury years ago, memories of a time he preferred to forget, of a life left behind. "Your grandmother, is she a teacher?" he asked, knowing the answer even before the girl confirmed it. "She was. She retired a long time ago, but she always talks about her students, always says that teaching was the best thing in the world." Emily wiped her nose with the back of her hand. "Do you know my grandma?" Michael didn't answer. He stood up slowly, still holding that marked fake bill. He looked at Barbara, who was watching him with concern. "Close the diner," he said. "What do you mean, close the diner? It's packed." "Close it. Tell the customers there's been a problem. Refund those who haven't eaten yet. Close everything." "Michael, are you okay? You're pale." He wasn't okay. For the first time in years, Michael Reynolds wasn't okay. That fake bill in his hand was more than just worthless money. It was a piece of a past he had sworn never to revisit. It was proof of a debt that could never be paid. It was the memory of everything he had tried to forget. "How long has your grandmother been sick?" he asked Emily, struggling to keep his voice calm. "A few weeks, I think. She fell in the bathroom a month ago, hit her head. Since then, she gets confused sometimes, forgets things. The doctor said she should take medicine every day. But the medicine ran out and we didn't have money to buy more." "And you're taking care of her alone?" The girl nodded, wiping more tears. "My dad called last week, said he and my mum are working hard to save money and come get me soon. But in the meantime, Grandma needs me. I just don't know how to take good care of her, you know? I try to cook, but sometimes it burns. I try to clean the house, but it's too big. And Grandma is getting weaker every day." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. Michael felt a heavy weight in his chest. He looked around the restaurant, at that small empire he had built with so much sweat and tears. He watched the customers being gently escorted out by Barbara and the other employees. He looked at the girl sitting in the chair, vulnerable and scared. And then he made a decision. "Come with me," he said, extending his hand to Emily. "Where to?" "We're going to visit your grandmother. But first, we'll prepare a decent meal for her." The girl's eyes widened. But I can't pay. The bill—" "Forget the bill," Michael interrupted. "Just take me to your grandmother." "Can you do that?" Emily nodded yes, still confused, but with a glimmer of hope in her eyes. Michael went to the kitchen, where his partner and friend, Kevin, was finishing an order. "Kev, I need you to take charge today." "What's this about closing the dining room, man? We're packed." "I know, but I need to take care of something urgent." "More urgent than the restaurant?" Michael looked at his friend, and Kevin must have seen something in his eyes that made him stop questioning. "All right, go. But you'll tell me what this is all about later." "I will. I promise." Michael personally prepared 3 large takeout containers with rice, beans, stewed chicken, potatoes, salad, and stuffing. He put everything in thermal bags along with fruit, bread, milk, and juice. He also took some desserts left over from the previous day. "Let's go," he said to Emily, who watched everything with wide eyes. They left the restaurant together, Michael carrying the heavy bags. The walk to Maple Street took about 15 minutes. With every step, Michael felt his heart beating faster. That neighborhood, those streets, everything was painfully familiar. "It's here," said Emily, stopping in front of a small, indeed blue house with a broken gate hanging sideways. Michael stopped too, looking at that house. It was worse than he remembered. The paint was peeling, the roof missing some shingles, the garden completely overgrown with weeds. But it was the same house, the same damn house where his life had changed 25 years ago. "Grandma!" Emily called, pushing the gate that creaked loudly. "Grandma, I brought food, and a man came with me." They entered the house. The smell of mold and dampness was strong. The living room was dark, with only a faint light coming from a window. Old, worn-out furniture, stained walls, a sofa that had seen much better days. "Grandma's in the bedroom," explained Emily, guiding Michael down a narrow hallway. The bedroom was small and stuffy. In a single bed covered with patched sheets was a woman Michael recognized immediately, despite the years and the frailty. Helen Wilson had completely white hair now, her face marked by deep wrinkles, her eyes sunken and tired. But it was her. It was the woman who had saved his life. "Emily?" Helen's voice came out weak. "Did you manage to buy the food, my dear?" "I did, Grandma. I brought a man who was very kind." Helen turned her head slowly to look at Michael. Her eyes scanned his face, trying to focus, trying to recognize. "Good afternoon, Ma'am," said Michael, and his voice faltered at the end. "Good afternoon, young man. Sorry my granddaughter bothered you. She's a good girl, very helpful." "She didn't bother me at all, on the contrary." Michael placed the bags on an old dresser and approached the bed. Helen kept looking at him, a furrow of confusion between her eyebrows. "Do we know each other?" she asked. "Your face. There's something familiar about it." "Yes, we do, Mrs. Wilson. You know me quite well, but it's been a long time. My memory has been a bit off lately." She gave a weak smile. "The doctor said it's normal at my age, but I don't like forgetting things, especially people." Michael pulled an old chair from the corner and sat beside the bed. He took the counterfeit bill from his pocket and showed it to Helen. "Do you recognize this?" Helen took the bill with trembling hands, brought it close to her eyes, then moved it away, trying to see better. "It's money. Why are you showing me money?" "Look here in the corner." Michael pointed to the small red mark. Helen observed it carefully. Her eyes widened slightly. "This X, I know this X," she murmured, her voice distant. "Someone used to mark money like this. Someone I knew. I used to mark it like that, Mrs. Wilson. I marked the counterfeit bills I received by mistake, so I'd never try to use them. You taught me to do that." "You—" Helen looked at him again, now more attentively. "Who are you?" Michael Reynolds. You were my teacher at the public school from 1998 to 2002. The recognition came slowly, like the dawn. Helen's eyes filled with tears. "Michael. My little Mikey. The boy who sat at the back of the class." "That's right. But you were so skinny, so small." She extended a trembling hand and touched his face. "Look how you've grown. Look how strong you've become." Michael couldn't hold back the tears. He took Helen's hand and held it tenderly. "You saved my life, Mrs. Wilson, and I never thanked you properly. I never came back to thank you." "You didn't need to thank me, my child. You never did." Emily watched everything, confused, not quite understanding what was happening. But even so, she felt it was something important, something special. "Grandma, Mr. Michael owns a restaurant. A big restaurant. He prepared food for us." Helen smiled, tears streaming down her wrinkled face. "You opened a restaurant? You achieved your dream." "I did. Thanks to you." "It wasn't because of me. You were the one who fought, who worked hard. You taught me to fight. You taught me I could be more than what everyone said I would be." Michael stood up and began taking the meal containers out of the bags. The smell of food filled the room, making Helen and Emily's stomachs growl loudly. "Let's eat before it gets cold," he said. And while we eat, I'll tell Emily here the story of how her grandmother changed my life. He helped Helen sit up in bed, placing pillows behind her to support her back. He served the food on plates he found in the house's tiny kitchen, old and chipped plates but clean. He sat down with both of them, and for the first time in 25 years, he ate a meal in that house. I was 10 years old when I entered Mrs. Wilson's classroom, he began, looking at Emily. I had just moved to this neighborhood with my mother. My father had abandoned us and we had nothing, literally nothing. We lived in a tiny room, slept on the floor, and went hungry almost every day. Little Mike always arrived late to class, Helen recalled, chewing her food slowly. And I could tell he was hungry. I could see it in his eyes, in the way he looked when other students opened their lunchboxes. You started bringing extra food. Every day there was a little plate hidden on your desk, and you made up excuses to call me over during break. You remember that? I remember every detail, Mrs. Wilson. Every act of kindness you showed me. The other teachers treated me like trash, said I wouldn't amount to anything, that poor boys have no future. But you never said that. You never gave up on me. Because I saw potential in you. I saw a smart boy who just needed a chance. Michael continued eating, but the tears wouldn't stop falling. When I was 13, my mother got sick. I had to start working to help with the bills. You noticed I was missing classes and came to my house, remember? Helen nodded, her eyes also misty. I remember. You were carrying cement bags at a construction site with those thin arms, almost fainting from exhaustion. You argued with the foreman, said I was underage, that I had to be in school. He laughed at you, said poor people have to work anyway. And you... I paid what they owed you and got you out of there, Helen completed. I paid with my own salary. And that wasn't all. You found me another job, lighter work, that I could do without missing classes. You helped me with my homework at night, in your own home, paid for my school supplies, my notebooks, my pencils. That was nothing. It was everything to me, Mrs. Helen. It was the difference between giving up and continuing, between becoming a street kid and being able to finish my studies. Emily listened, fascinated, eating her food while discovering things about her grandmother she never knew. When I was 16, Michael continued, I started saving money. I worked at 3 different places during my free time from school. I wanted to do something for my mother who was still sick. I wanted to do something for you too, to repay everything you had done for me. You didn't need to repay anything. Yes, I did. I needed to show that I believed in myself because you believed in me first. One day, I got paid at one of the firms where I worked. The manager was dishonest, always paying with fake bills mixed in with real ones. I didn't know how to tell them apart yet. I had no experience with that. And you brought that money here to the house, Helen recalled. Yes, you checked every bill, taught me how to see the differences, the watermarks, the textures. And you took the fake ones, marked them all with a red X and said, keep this as a reminder. Keep it so you never forget that there are dishonest people in the world, and you can never be one of them, no matter how desperate you are. And you really kept them, said Helen, holding the marked bill again. I kept them all. 7 fake bills that I had received back then, all marked with your X. I put them in an envelope and hid them in my mother's drawer, along with important documents. I never thought about using them, never thought about trying to trick anyone with them. They were my reminder of honesty. Then how did this bill end up in my drawer? Asked Helen, confused. That's a story I wanted to understand too, said Michael. Can I look around the house, Mrs. Helen, see if I find any clues? Of course, my son. This house is practically yours too. You spent so much time here, studying, eating, talking. Michael stood up and began exploring the small house. In the living room, he found an old bookshelf full of photos. He picked up a few and showed them to Helen. Do you remember this day? He showed a black and white photo of a school group. I remember. It was my class of 2000. You're there in the back, looking down, always shy. And this one? He showed another photo, colored from a school festival. Ah, the school festival. You danced the quadrille for the first time that day. You were so afraid of making mistakes that you memorized all the steps. They continued looking at photos, reminiscing about moments, until Michael found a photo that made him stop. It was a picture of him, at about 17 years old, in front of a small building. He was holding a sign that said, "Open." "My first business," he murmured. "I didn't even know you had taken a picture that day." "It was your hot dog cart," said Helen, smiling. "You were so proud when you managed to save enough money to buy that used cart. You worked so hard to make it work. And it did work. That was the beginning of everything. From that little cart, I managed to rent a small spot. From the small spot, I managed to open a snack bar. From the snack bar came the restaurant." "I knew you would make it," Helen said proudly. "I always knew." Michael continued searching through the house. In the living room, he found an old cardboard box under a sideboard. Inside were old documents, newspaper clippings, more photos. And then he found it. A yellowed newspaper clipping carefully folded. The headline read, "Young Entrepreneur Opens Restaurant Downtown." The photo showed Michael, younger, in front of the restaurant, with a huge smile on his face. It was from 5 years ago when he had finally managed to open his dream place. "You kept this?" he asked, returning to the room and showing the clipping. "I did. I keep everything about my students who succeed in life. I have clippings of many of them. You weren't the only one I helped, you know, but you were one of the ones I was most proud of." Michael felt his chest tighten. He continued searching in the box and found more things about him, photos he didn't even know existed, notes that Helen had made about his progress in school, even some assignments he had turned in decades ago. "You kept all this." "A teacher never forgets their special students," Helen said simply. It was then that Michael saw, at the bottom of the box, a yellowed envelope. An envelope he recognized immediately. He picked it up with trembling hands and opened it. Inside were the other 6 fake bills, marked with the red X. How did this end up here?" he asked, stunned. "Let me see," said Helen. She looked at the bills, thought for a moment. "Oh yes, now I remember. It was when your mother... when she left us. Yes, 7 years ago. Cancer. You called me desperate, said you were sorting out her things, closing up the apartment where she lived and didn't know what to do with some belongings. I offered to help." The memory came back like a slap in Michael's face. He had indeed called Helen during that terrible time. He was alone, desperate, dealing with his mother's loss and all the bureaucratic processes that follow. Helen had gone there, had helped pack things, separate what would be donated from what would be kept. "You took these bills that day?" "You were so upset, my boy. You could barely think straight. I saw the envelope among the documents, opened it by chance, saw the marked bills and remembered the story. I kept it with me thinking you would want it back one day, but you never asked. And then, I guess I forgot I had kept it. My memory isn't what it used to be. And Emily found it by chance today?" "I found it yesterday, actually," said the girl. "I was looking for money to buy food because Grandma was feeling sick. I opened all the drawers and found this envelope hidden at the back. When I saw the money, I thought it was a lifesaver. I never imagined it could be fake." "You had no way of knowing," said Michael, stroking the girl's head. "And in a way it was a lifesaver, just not in the way you expected." He sat down again beside Helen's bed, holding the 7 fake marked bills, 7 reminders of honesty that had returned to him in the most unlikely way possible. "I was a terrible student too," said Michael, his voice full of emotion. "Not a terrible student in studies, but a terrible student in what you really tried to teach me." "What do you mean by that?" "You always taught me to repay kindness with kindness, to never forget those who helped us. And what did I do? I grew up, got rich, got caught up in the daily rush, and never came back to see how you were doing. I never came to thank you. I never thought about how you might need help. Michael, you had no obligation to—" "Yes, I did," he interrupted, his voice louder than he intended. "I did have. You gave part of your life to me. You used your own salary, your own time, your own energy to help me, and I just moved on as if none of that had happened. You built your life. That's what I wanted. It's all any teacher wants." "But at what cost to you?" Michael looked around the miserable room, at the house falling apart. "You worked your whole life as a teacher, Taught hundreds of children, helped dozens of them probably. And where is everyone now? Where am I? People move on with their lives, my son. It's natural. Natural is not abandoning those who helped us. He held Helen's hand tightly. Natural is returning kindness. Natural is remembering those who remembered you when you needed them most. Silence fell heavily in the room. Emily watched everything with tears in her eyes, feeling the depth of that moment, even without fully understanding everything being said. "Mrs. Wilson," said Michael finally, wiping away tears, "I can't go back in time. I can't fix the fact that I haven't come here for years. But I can start doing things differently from now on. I can try to repay, even if incompletely, everything you did for me. You don't owe me anything. It's not about owing, it's about wanting, it's about doing what's right, what you taught me to do." Michael stood up, grabbed his phone and started making calls. The first was to Barbara at the restaurant. "Barbara, you'll need to keep the dining room closed for dinner too, and I need you to gather everyone, all the staff you can get together. Yes, now, it's urgent. I'll send the address. I need you to come here." The second call was to Kevin. "Kev, write down this address. I need you to go to a pharmacy, the biggest one you can find, and buy... Wait, I'll ask for the medicine name." He turned to Helen. "What's the medicine you need?" Helen, still confused by everything happening, mumbled the name. Michael repeated it to Kevin, who wrote everything down. He also asked for vitamins, supplements, bandages, everything that could be useful. The third call was to an acquaintance who worked with renovations. "Frank? It's Michael. I need an urgent favor. I need you to come assess a house for me. That's right now. It has to be now because the renovation has to start tomorrow. No, it's not at the restaurant. It's somewhere else. I'll send the address right away." He made a few more calls, organizing things, asking for favors, mobilizing resources. Helen and Emily watched without really understanding what was happening. "Michael, what are you doing?" asked Helen. "I'm doing what I should have done years ago, Mrs. Wilson. I'm taking care of you. But I can't accept charity from you. That's not why I helped you. It's not charity, it's gratitude. And please, don't take this chance to do something good away from me, to do something right." In less than half an hour, the small house was bustling. Barbara arrived with 3 other restaurant employees, all carrying more food, clean blankets, new towels. Kevin showed up shortly after with a huge pharmacy bag full of medicines and personal care products. Frank, the renovation man, arrived with an assistant and started making notes about the house's condition. "This house needs a lot of work," said Frank, after looking everything over. "The roof is compromised. The electrical system is dangerous. The plumbing is clogged. The walls have water damage." "Then fix all of it," said Michael. "And I want it done right. I don't want a patch job. I want it safe, comfortable, beautiful. That's going to cost a lot. I don't care. Make the estimate and start tomorrow." "Tomorrow? Michael, this isn't like fixing a wall. It'll take weeks." "So start tomorrow to finish faster, and while the renovation is happening, Mrs. Helen and Emily will stay at a hotel. She'll pay for everything." "I'm not going to any hotel, protested Helen. "This is my home, and it will continue to be your home," assured Michael. "A much better home, but you can't stay here while the renovation is happening. It's not safe." Barbara approached the bed and took Helen's hand. "Mrs. Helen, I've known Michael for 15 years. He's stubborn, and once he gets an idea in his head, no one can change his mind. It's better to accept it now because he won't give up." "But it's so much money." Helen was visibly emotional. "I have money, Mrs. Helen. What I don't have is a way to repay everything you've done for me. But I'll try. I'll try very hard." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. That night, Michael organized everything meticulously. He reserved a comfortable hotel room for Helen and Emily. He personally took them there, helped them get settled, made sure they had everything they needed. He hired a private nurse to care for Helen, at least until she recovered. He paid for 1 month in advance. Then he returned to the house on Maple Street and stayed there until late, talking with Frank and the renovation team. He wanted everything to be perfect. It wasn't just a renovation. It was a way to ask for forgiveness, to redeem himself for years of absence, to show that, even though it had taken time, he hadn't forgotten. When he finally got home, it was past midnight. He sat on the sofa of his apartment, a comfortable place he had bought with hard work, and looked at the 7 marked fake bills on the coffee table. 7 reminders, 7 chances to have done things differently. 7 years since his mother's death, when he had last seen Helen. He picked up his phone and opened the restaurant's social media. He posted an old photo, the one Helen had kept of him, in front of the hot dog cart, and wrote, "This is the story of how a retired teacher changed a poor boy's life, of how small acts of kindness can transform destinies, of how we should never forget those who helped us when we needed it most. Tomorrow our restaurant will operate normally, but with a new purpose. Part of our income will go to help retired teachers who are struggling, because education transforms, because kindness transforms, because it's never too late to say thank you." Eternal gratitude. Teachers who change lives. Before sleeping, Michael did one more thing. He opened an old notebook he had kept since his teenage years. In it, he had written a list of goals when he was 16, things he wanted to achieve in life, things he dreamed of doing. He read each item, realizing he had accomplished many of them. Have his own business. Check. Give his mother a dignified life while she lived. Check. Never go hungry again. Check. But there was one item he hadn't crossed out, an item he had written in that notebook so many years ago. Repay Mrs. Helen for everything she did. He took a pen and finally, after so long, crossed out that item. Not because he had managed to repay her completely. He knew he could never fully do that, but because he had started, because he had taken the first step, because he had chosen to do what was right, even if delayed. In the following days, Michael's routine changed completely. He woke up early, went to the hotel to check on Helen and Emily, brought them breakfast, talked with them. Then he stopped by the construction site on Maple Street, checked the progress of everything, gave instructions. Only then did he go to the restaurant where he worked until mid-afternoon. In the afternoon, he would return to the hotel, spend a few more hours with Helen and Emily, then go back to the construction site. At night, when he finally got home, he would collapse exhausted into bed. But it was a different kind of tiredness. It was a good tiredness. A tiredness that came from doing something meaningful, something that truly mattered. Helen, little by little, was regaining her strength. With the right medications, proper nutrition and medical care, her health improved considerably. The mental confusion decreased. Strength returned to her legs. Color returned to her face. Emily, in turn, was radiant. For the first time in weeks, she could just be a child. She didn't have to worry about taking care of her grandmother alone, finding food, dealing with adult problems. She could play, watch TV, do her homework. She could be 8 years old again. 1 week after that fateful day of the counterfeit money, Michael was at the hotel talking with Helen when she brought up a delicate subject. "Michael, I need to ask you something, and I want you to be honest with me." "Of course, Mrs. Wilson. Go ahead and ask." "Why did you never come back? All these years, why did you never come to see me?" The question stung. Michael knew that moment would come, but he wasn't prepared for it. I don't have a good answer for that," he admitted, his voice low. "At first, I was so focused on working, on growing, on making my business succeed. I woke up early, slept late, every penny counted. Every second was important. I told myself I would visit you when things got a little better, when I had more time. And then? Then I was ashamed. Ashamed of having taken so long. Ashamed of having become one of those people who forget who helped them. The more time passed, the harder it became to come back. How could I show up here after 5, 6, 7 years? What was I going to say? Sorry, I was busy? You could have said exactly that, Helen said softly. I would have understood. I know you would have. And that makes it all worse. Because it wasn't you who pushed me away. It was me. It was my pride, my cowardice, my inability to admit that I was wrong for not visiting you. And when your mother passed away, you called me that day. Why didn't we keep talking after that? Michael took a deep breath. That was the hardest part. Because I was broken inside. My mother was all I had. When she was gone, I kind of fell apart. I buried myself in work, so I wouldn't have to feel the pain. I worked 16, 18 hours a day. I didn't answer calls. I didn't see anyone. It was a dark period in my life. Why didn't you come to me? I could have helped you. Because I had already caused you enough trouble, Mrs. Wilson. You had already done too much for me. How could I show up again asking for help, asking for support, asking for attention? I was an adult. I had to deal with my things on my own. Michael, when someone truly helps you, it's not just when you're a child. It's forever. You don't stop mattering just because you grew up. He felt the tears returning. It seemed like lately all he did was cry. I understand that now, but back then I was too proud to accept it. I thought I had to prove to everyone, including myself, that I could manage on my own, that I didn't need help, that I was strong. And you were. You've always been strong. But strength doesn't mean loneliness, my son. I know. I learned that the hard way. I learned it when an 8-year-old girl showed up at my restaurant with a counterfeit bill and made me realize how much I had lost my way. Helen smiled, a tear running down her face. God works in mysterious ways. Who would have thought that those counterfeit bills I kept out of forgetfulness would be the instrument to reunite us? Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if Emily hadn't found those bills, if she had found real money. Or if he hadn't found anything. There's no use thinking about what could have been. What matters is what is, and what is now is much better than it was a week ago. Michael agreed. It was true. Everything had changed in a week, and it would keep changing because he had made a decision. He had decided that he wouldn't let work, pride, or cowardice stop him from doing what was right anymore. Ms. Wilson, I'd like to ask you a question too, he said, changing the subject. Go right ahead. How did you manage to help so many students? Teachers don't make much, and yet you spent your own money to help those in need. Helen let out a long sigh. It was hard, I won't lie. My salary was never big, but I've always been simple. I never needed much to be happy. I lived in that small house, which had been mine since I got married, so I didn't pay rent. I ate little. I had no vices, didn't spend on nonsense. I had a little left over every month, and that little extra I preferred to use to help a child rather than buy things I didn't need. But it must have been hard even so, especially after you became a widow. It was. My husband passed away when I was 42. We had no children. Suddenly I was alone, just with my teacher's salary. I had two choices: become bitter and closed off in my own world, or find meaning in something else. I chose to find meaning in my students. And you found it. You helped dozens of them. I tried. I didn't always succeed. Some got lost along the way despite everything. Others I helped, but they didn't remember me later. That's just how it is. We don't do things expecting something in return. But you still deserve something in return. What I deserve doesn't matter. What matters is that I made a difference in some people's lives, including you, and that's worth more than anything. Michael spent the rest of the afternoon listening to stories. Helen told him about other students she had helped, some who became teachers too, others who became doctors, lawyers, engineers, many who simply managed to have a decent life, an honest job, a happy family. And did all of them forget about you too? Asked Michael, with a tightness in his chest. Most of them, yes. A few still send a message on Teacher's Day. 1 or 2 have visited me over the years, but it's rare. People move on with their lives. That's so unfair. That's life, Michael. There's no use being bitter about it. I did what I did because it was the right thing to do, not because I expected something in return. But you deserved something in return. You deserved someone to take care of you too. You deserved not to be going hungry in a house falling apart. Time passes, things change. I received my pension, lived well on it. But then came the medical bills. Medicines got more expensive. The house needed some repairs that used up my savings. Before I knew it, I had no reserves left, and I was too proud to ask for help. Pride, Michael repeated bitterly. We're both too proud for our own good. We really are, Helen smiled. But you're breaking that pride now. You're doing things differently, and that's what matters. That night, Michael couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about everything Helen had told him, about all the students she had helped and who had forgotten her, about how she deserved much more than she had received from life. about how the system was cruel to teachers, paying them little, recognizing them even less. And then he had an idea. The next morning, he called the restaurant's marketing team. "I need you to run a campaign for me. Something big, something that gets attention." "A campaign for what?" "To recognize retired teachers. I want you to announce that our restaurant will offer free meals to any retired teacher who wants to come eat here. No limit. No restrictions." "Michael, this is going to cost a lot. What if too many people come?" "If too many come, great. It means there are many teachers needing help. And if it costs too much, I'll raise the prices of other items on the menu, or pay for it out of my own pocket." "I don't care, run this campaign." The campaign launched 3 days later. It started small, just on the restaurant's social media, but it quickly went viral. Local newspapers picked up the story, radio stations commented, TV stations sent reporters to interview Michael. He told the story without revealing Helen's name, respecting her privacy. He told how a teacher had changed his life, how he had almost forgotten about her, how a chance involving counterfeit money had reunited them, how he realized that many teachers, after a lifetime dedicated to education, ended up in precarious situations. The impact was huge. People started commenting, sharing their own stories about teachers who had helped them. Other business owners felt inspired and began similar initiatives in their cities. A movement was being born, but with public attention came problems too. In the second week after the campaign's launch, Michael was at the restaurant when a man in a suit entered. It wasn't lunchtime yet, the place was empty. "Michael Reynolds?" the man asked. "Yes, that's me. How can I help you?" "My name is Walter Coleman. I'm a lawyer. I'm here representing some of your fellow business owners in the neighborhood." Michael felt a chill run down his spine. He didn't like the man's tone of voice. "Representing in what sense?" "Well, your campaign is causing some discomfort. You're giving away free meals, which could be considered unfair competition. You're attracting a clientele that other establishments don't want. You're, let's say, lowering the neighborhood standards." "Lowering the standards?" Michael repeated, incredulous. "I'm helping retired teachers. You're creating a magnet for people who don't have money. And these people are taking up space, driving away, paying customers. Other nearby restaurants are experiencing losses. And what do you want me to do? Stop helping?" "Exactly. Or at least limit the number of people who receive free meals. Do some kind of screening, registration. Don't turn your establishment into a social assistance point." Michael felt the anger rising. It was the same anger he had felt when he saw Emily crying in the restaurant. The same anger he felt every time he saw injustice. "You can tell your clients that I'm not stopping. In fact, I'm going to expand the program. And if they don't like it, they can move out of the neighborhood, because I'm not leaving." "Mr. Reynolds, you're being unreasonable. This could result in legal action." "Then let it. I'll hire the best lawyers if necessary. But I won't stop doing what's right just because it bothers a handful of greedy business owners." Walter Coleman sighed. "You're making a mistake, but the decision is yours. I just came to deliver the warning." He left the restaurant, leaving Michael with his blood boiling. He grabbed his phone and called Kevin. "Kev, call everyone for a meeting." "Yes, now. We need to talk." An hour later, all the restaurant employees were gathered in the back room. Michael explained the situation. He told them about the lawyer's visit, about the veiled threats. "I'm not backing down," he said, "but I need you all to know what we're getting into. We might have problems. Other establishments might try to boycott us, or there might be some legal action, even if it's unfounded. And because of that, I won't force anyone to stay. If anyone wants to leave, I'll completely understand. I'll give a recommendation letter, I'll help find another job." There was a silence. Michael looked at his employees, people who had worked with him for years, who had helped build that place. It was Barbara who spoke first. "Michael, you hired me when I was 50 and no other place would give me a job. You said experience was worth more than age. Do you really think I'm going to abandon you now?" Other employees began to speak up. "You paid for my son's treatment when he got sick," said Kevin. "Used money from your own pocket. Didn't even hesitate. I'm not leaving." "You helped me go back to school," said Amanda, one of the cooks. "Paid for half of my college. I'm with you till the end." One by one, all the employees voiced their support. No one wanted to leave. Everyone was willing to face whatever came their way. Michael felt his eyes well up once again. It seemed like all he'd done lately was cry. "Thank you," he said simply. "Thank you for believing in this. For believing it's worth doing the right thing even when it's hard." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. In the following days, the pressure increased. Some suppliers cancelled contracts, claiming they were overloaded. Others raised prices outrageously. It was clear someone was pressuring them, trying to suffocate Michael's restaurant. But he didn't give up. He found new suppliers, some even better than the old ones. He adjusted the menu, adapted to the new realities, and he kept welcoming retired teachers for free. The story reached Helen's ears, and she became worried. "Michael, you don't need to do this for my sake," she said when he went to visit her at the hotel. "You don't need to fight with everyone, put your business at risk. It's not just for your sake, Mrs. Wilson. It's for all the teachers. It's because it's right. It's because someone has to take a stand. But what if you lose the restaurant? What if everything goes wrong? Then I'll start over. It wouldn't be the first time. I started with a hot dog cart, remember? If I have to, I'll go back to that. But I won't stop doing what's right just because it's hard." "You're as stubborn as a mule," said Helen, but she was smiling. "I learned from the best." The house renovation was progressing well. Frank and his team worked from sunup to sundown. The new roof was almost done. The electrical system had been completely redone. The plumbing was working perfectly. The walls had new plaster and a fresh coat of paint. "It's going to be beautiful," said Frank, showing the progress to Michael. "Better than it was before. Much better." "Great. I want her to have a decent home. You really care a lot about this teacher, huh? She saved my life, literally. If it weren't for her, I'd probably be dead or in jail or on drugs. She showed me I could be more. Gave me hope when I had none." It's beautiful to see that. To see someone repaying kindness. It's rare these days. It shouldn't be rare. It should be normal. But we live in a world where people only think about themselves. Well, you're changing that, at least a little bit. 2 weeks after the renovation began, Helen and Emily were able to return home. Michael made sure to be there when they arrived. The transformation was stunning. The house that was once falling apart now looked brand new. Walls painted a clean white, an impeccable roof, new windows, gleaming ceramic floors. The kitchen had been completely renovated, with new cabinets and modern appliances. The bathroom was impeccable, with new fixtures and tiles that shone. The bedrooms had new beds, spacious closets, pretty curtains. "My God," Helen put her hand to her mouth as she walked in. "This is my house." "Yes, it is," said Michael, smiling. "Your renovated house. But this it looks like a rich person's place." "It's not for the rich. It's for a teacher who deserves dignity, who deserves comfort, who deserves to have a beautiful and safe home." Emily ran through the entire house, exploring every room, laughing with joy. It was as if she had entered a magical world. "Grandma, come see my room. There's a new bed, and a closet just for me. And look at this window. You can see the whole street." Helen followed her granddaughter, tears streaming freely down her face. She went from room to room, touching the walls, as if she couldn't believe they were real. She stopped in the kitchen, where she opened and closed the cabinets several times, still in shock. "Michael, this must have cost a fortune." "I don't care how much it cost. I care that you are well, that you have a dignified place to live." "But how can I thank you for all this?" "You don't need to thank me, Mrs. Helen. I'm the one who needs to thank you. And even then, it will never be enough." They spent the rest of the day organizing the house. Michael had bought new furniture, kitchen utensils, bedding, towels, everything that might be needed. He had even filled the refrigerator and pantry with food for weeks. At night, when everything was arranged, the three of them sat in the new living room, on a comfortable sofa that Michael had bought. "You know," said Helen, looking around, "this house was like this once before. When my husband was alive, when we had just gotten married, everything was new, clean, beautiful. Over time things wore out, and I never had enough money to renew them. It was sad to see the house where I was happy deteriorating little by little. Now it's new again, said Michael, and it will stay that way. I'll make sure of that. You can't take care of me forever. Yes, I can, and I will. In fact, I have something else to give you. He took an envelope from his pocket and handed it to Helen. She opened it and found a bank card inside. What is this? A debit card. I opened an account for you. Every month money will be deposited into this account, enough for you to live with dignity, to buy food, medicine, clothes, whatever you need. Michael, I can't accept this. Yes, you can, and you will, because it's not charity. It's repayment. It's the attempt to repay, even if partially, everything you did for me. But this is too much. It's not too much. It's the least I can do. Helen held the card with trembling hands, tears falling again. You've grown so much and become so good. I grew because you helped me grow. I became good because you taught me what it meant to be good. They spent the night talking. Helen told more stories from the past, from when Michael was little, about the difficulties he faced, about how she watched him grow and improve. Michael, in turn, talked about building the restaurant, about the challenges he faced as a businessman, about his plans for the future. You know what I want to do, he said at one point. I want to create a foundation that helps retired teachers, that offers financial support, medical assistance, home renovations. I don't want any teacher to go through what you went through. That's a very beautiful dream. It's not a dream. It's a plan. I'm already talking to a lawyer to structure it, and I already have other businessmen interested in contributing. Not all, of course. Some still see me as a threat, but there are many good people out there who want to help too. You're going to change the world, Michael. Not the whole world, but a part of it. And if everyone does their part, if everyone helps a little, maybe we can really make a difference. Emily had fallen asleep on the sofa while they talked. Michael carefully picked her up in his arms and took her to the new room, where he laid her on the comfortable bed. He covered her with a soft blanket and left quietly. She's a special girl, said Helen, very mature for her age. She's been through a lot these past few months. Her parents, why aren't they here? It's a complicated situation. They went to work in New York at a factory. The pay there is better than here. The idea was to save up for a few months and then come get Emily. But things didn't go as planned. The cost of living there is high, the money barely covers their own expenses, and now they're stuck there, working just to survive, unable to save anything. And Emily stayed here with you. Yes, at first everything was fine. I had my retirement. It was enough to support both of us. But then I got sick, expenses went up, and everything fell apart quickly. Do her parents know about the situation? They know it's tough, but they don't know how much. I didn't tell them everything. I'm proud, you know. I didn't want to worry them. I thought I could handle it on my own. And do they call, visit? They call when they can, but it's rare. Phones are expensive and their time is all taken up by work. As for visiting, they don't have money for the fare. It's been 4 months since they've seen their daughter. Michael felt his chest tighten. He thought about how hard it must be for those parents, far from their daughter, stuck in a situation they couldn't resolve. He thought about how hard it must be for Emily without her parents, having to grow up too fast. I can help with that too, he said. I can bring them here to visit, or bring Emily to them. Whatever is best. You've already done so much. It's never too much to do good. It's never too much to help. Let me see what I can do. The next day, Michael got in touch with Emily's parents. He called them and introduced himself. He told them the whole story, from the counterfeit bill to the house renovation. The parents cried on the phone, relieved to know their daughter and grandmother were being cared for. I don't know how to thank you, said Emily's father, a man with a tired voice. I don't know how to repay all this. You don't need to repay it, you just need to keep fighting for your family. Keep being a good father. But we're so stuck here. We can't save anything. What if I found jobs for you here, at my restaurant or somewhere else in the neighborhood? You could come back, be close to Emily. There was silence on the other end of the line. You would do that? I would. I will. Give me a few days to arrange everything. And Michael kept his word. He spoke with Kevin and other business owners he knew. He got a cook position for Emily's father at his own restaurant and a sales assistant job for her mother at a nearby store. The salaries weren't high, but they were enough for a decent life, enough to keep the family together. 3 weeks after the counterfeit bill incident, Emily was in the renovated house when she heard the doorbell ring. She ran to open it and froze when she saw who was outside. "Dad? Mom?" It was a moment of pure emotion. Emily ran into her parents' arms, and they picked her up off the ground, crying and laughing at the same time. Helen appeared at the door, also crying. Michael watched from afar, from his car parked on Maple Street, feeling his chest warm at the scene. That made sense. That was worth it. All the money spent, all the work, all the arguments with other business owners. Everything was worth it for that moment of a family reuniting. But the story was far from over. The campaign to help retired teachers had taken on a life of its own. Every day, new teachers showed up at the restaurant, some just for a free meal, others with heartbreaking stories of hardship. A lady named Marissa said she had taught for 40 years and now lived on a retirement that barely covered the rent. A man named Oscar said he had been a school principal and now sold sweets on the street to make ends meet. A young teacher, Bethany, who had only been teaching for 5 years, shared that she was thinking of giving up the profession because she couldn't make ends meet. Each story was a punch to Michael's gut. Each account reinforced his conviction that he was doing the right thing, that he needed to keep fighting. The foundation he had mentioned to Helen was taking shape. With the help of a lawyer friend, Michael structured all the legal aspects. He named it the Educators of the Future Foundation. The goal was simple: to provide dignity for retired teachers and support for active ones. To achieve this, he relied on donations from business owners moved by the cause. Some came in person to thank their own former teachers. Others contributed anonymously. Within 2 months, the foundation had raised over $500,000. "Michael, this is incredible," Helen said when he showed her the numbers. "You're really making a difference. We're making a difference. You, me, all the teachers who dedicated their lives to education. This is just the recognition you've always deserved." The foundation's first action was to pay for renovations to the homes of 10 retired teachers living in poor conditions. The second was to create a healthcare fund, ensuring teachers could access necessary treatments and medications. The third was to establish scholarships for teachers' children and grandchildren. The impact was nationwide. TV shows invited Michael for interviews, newspapers ran special features, magazines held him up as an example of social responsibility. But not everything was positive. Pressure from rival business owners grew. Lawsuits were filed, alleging irregularities at the restaurant. Inspections showed up almost every week. It was clear they wanted to force him to give up. "They won't break me," Michael told Kevin after yet another inspection that found nothing wrong. "They can try all they want, but they won't break me. Man, maybe it's time to back off a bit. This fight is getting heavy." "Back off? Now? When we're finally making a real difference? But what if you lose the restaurant? What if they manage to shut you down? Then I'll open another one, and another if I have to. But I won't back off." One night, Michael was closing the restaurant when a group of men appeared. There were 5 of them, all dressed in expensive suits, all with unfriendly faces. "Michael Reynolds," said one of them, a tall man with a thin mustache. "That's me. Who's asking?" "We're representatives of the Neighborhood Merchants Association. We've come to make a proposal." "A proposal?" Michael crossed his arms. "What kind of proposal?" "We want to buy your restaurant. We'll pay well, much above market value. You leave here rich without any problems and can start over somewhere else. My restaurant is not for sale. Think about it. It's a generous offer. And look, it's not a threat, but things could get complicated for you here if you don't accept. That is a threat, and they can get as complicated as they want. I'm not leaving. You're being stubborn. You're hurting the whole neighborhood with this charity campaign of yours. You're attracting people who shouldn't be here." "People who shouldn't be here?" Michael felt the anger rising. "Retired teachers who dedicated their lives to educating you and your children shouldn't be here. You know what I'm talking about. You're turning your establishment into some kind of shelter. It lowers the neighborhood standards, drives away good clientele." Good clientele, you mean wealthy clientele, because the poor aren't welcome, is that it? It's the reality of the market. It's a disgusting reality, and I won't be part of it. So, you can go back to your bosses and tell them I'm not accepting the offer. My restaurant stays where it is, and my campaign continues. The man with the thin moustache approached, his face twisted in anger. You're going to regret this decision. The only thing I regret is having lived so many years without realizing the world is full of people like you. The men left, but Michael knew it wasn't over. This was a declared war, and he was alone on one side against many on the other, or at least he thought he was alone. The next day, when he arrived at the restaurant, he found a surprise. In front of the establishment was a small crowd. Teachers, former students, journalists, ordinary people who had heard his story and wanted to support him. What's going on? He asked Barbara, who was at the door. People found out about the threats you received, and they decided to come show support. Michael was moved. He saw Helen there in a borrowed wheelchair that a neighbor had gotten for her, holding a sign that read, "United teachers will never be defeated." He saw Emily beside her, also with a sign. He saw dozens of faces he didn't know, but who were there because they believed in what he was doing. An elderly gentleman approached, leaning on a cane. "Mr. Reynolds, my name is Gerald. I was a teacher for 50 years. I came here to thank you personally for what you're doing." "No need to thank me. I'm just doing what's right. But you're doing more than that. You're giving us back our dignity. You're showing society that teachers matter. And for that, we're going to stay here. We're going to support you. We're going to show those greedy businessmen that they won't win." That day was unforgettable. The restaurant was packed all day. People made a point of paying more for their food, saying the difference was a donation to the foundation. Teachers from other cities started arriving, wanting to see the place that had become a symbol of resistance. At night, when he finally got a moment of peace, Michael called Helen. "Did you see what happened today?" he asked. "I did. I was there, remember? That was incredible. I don't even have words. You touched people's hearts, Michael. You showed that there's still goodness in the world, and people responded. But I'm also afraid. Afraid I won't be able to sustain all this, afraid of disappointing all these people who are believing in me. You won't disappoint anyone, because you're doing it out of love, not ego. And when we do things out of love, they tend to work out. I hope you're right. I am. You can trust your old teacher." Michael smiled, feeling a peace he hadn't felt in a long time. Maybe Helen was right. Maybe, when you do things for the right reasons, everything conspires in your favor. But the war against the rival businessmen was far from over. They changed tactics. Since they couldn't intimidate him or buy him off, they would try to destroy his reputation. They started spreading rumors that Michael was using the campaign to launder money, that the foundation was a fraud, that he was taking advantage of vulnerable teachers to gain publicity, that it was all just a big marketing stunt. The accusations were absurd, but they stuck. Some people started questioning. Less scrupulous journalists published sensationalist articles. Social media filled with negative comments. "Michael, this is getting ugly," said Kevin, showing some of the comments on his phone. "People are starting to believe these lies." "Then let's prove they're lies. Let's open the foundation's books. Let's show every dollar that comes in and out. Let's be completely transparent." "But even then, some people won't believe it. Some people prefer to believe the worst." "Then at least our conscience will be clear. We'll do what's right and let everyone draw their own conclusions." Michael spent the following days organizing a complete audit of the foundation. He hired an independent company to verify all accounts. He published detailed reports on social media. He made sure to be absolutely transparent. The results were clear. There were no irregularities. Every dollar donated to the foundation was being used exactly as promised. In fact, the audit showed that Michael was putting money from his own pocket to supplement the actions, much more than he had disclosed. "Why did you never say you were paying out of your own pocket?" asked a journalist during a press conference. "Because it wasn't relevant. I'm not doing this for credit. I'm doing it because it's necessary." "But people have the right to know. You're being much more generous than you let on. The only right people need to know is that we're helping teachers. The rest are details." The interview went viral. Michael's transparency won over even the most skeptical. The rumors gradually dissipated. The foundation's reputation was restored, and more people began to contribute, impressed by the honesty and dedication demonstrated. But Michael was tired. Those months had been too intense. Between managing the restaurant, running the foundation, dealing with attacks and pressures, he barely had time to sleep. One night he collapsed. He was at the restaurant preparing to close for the day when he felt a sharp pain in his chest. Everything went dark and he fell. When he woke up, he was in a hospital. Beside the bed, he saw Helen, Emily, Kevin, Barbara, and several other familiar faces. "What happened?" he asked, his voice weak. "You fainted," explained Helen, holding his hand. "The doctors said it was exhaustion. You were working yourself to death." "How long have I been here?" 2 days. We were all worried." Michael tried to sit up but felt dizzy. "I need to get back to the restaurant." "You're not going back anywhere," said Helen firmly. "You're going to rest. You're going to take care of your health. The restaurant can run without you for a few days, but the foundation, it can also run without you for a few days. Michael, you're not Superman. You're human, and humans need to rest." He knew Helen was right. He had worked so hard to help others that he forgot to take care of himself. He had repeated the mistake he so often criticized in others. He had gotten lost in the rush, forgotten what really mattered. "You're right," he admitted. "I overdid it. I tried to do everything alone." "And you don't have to do everything alone. There are people willing to help. There are people who want to share the burden with you, but you need to let them." In the following days, while hospitalized, Michael received dozens of visits. Teachers he had helped came to thank him and wish him well. Helen's former students came to meet him and share their own stories. Businessmen from other cities came to offer help in expanding the foundation. "You're not alone," said one of them, a middle-aged man who introduced himself as Peter. "I was also a student of an incredible teacher who changed my life. When I saw your story, I felt inspired to do something similar in my city. And now there's a network of businessmen who want to do the same in their cities." "Really?" Michael was moved. "Really? You started a movement, Michael. A movement that goes far beyond you or your restaurant. It's changing how society sees and treats teachers." Those words brought a sense of peace that Michael hadn't felt in a long time. He realized he didn't have to carry everything alone, that his struggle had inspired others, that together they could do much more than he ever could alone. When he was discharged from the hospital a week later, Michael made some important decisions. First, hire a manager to handle the day-to-day operations of the restaurant, freeing him up to dedicate more time to the foundation. Second, create a team to run the foundation instead of trying to do everything alone. Third, take some time for himself, to rest, to live, to enjoy his achievements. Helen's house was completely transformed. The renovation was finished, but she had done more than just make the house beautiful. She had brought life back to that place. Emily's family, now reunited and employed, lived there with her. The house that was once filled with solitude had become a home full of life, laughter, and love. "I never thought I'd have a family again," Helen said one afternoon, watching Emily play in the renovated backyard. "After my husband passed, I thought I'd spend the rest of my life alone." "You were never alone," Michael said, sitting beside her on the new porch. "You had hundreds of children out there. They just forgot about it. But you remembered, at the most important time. Or maybe I was forced to remember, that counterfeit bill. If Emily had found real money, none of this would have happened. I'd still be in my life, focused only on work without ever coming back here. God works in mysterious ways." "You always say that." "Because it's true. Sometimes what seems like a problem is actually a blessing in disguise. That counterfeit bill brought you back, it brought you home." Michael felt his eyes well up once again. It seemed like that was his permanent condition now, always on the verge of tears. "I miss my mother," he said suddenly. "I miss being able to tell her about all this, to show her how much I've grown, how much I've achieved." "She knows," Helen said with certainty. "Wherever she is, she knows, and she's proud." I wish I had taken better care of her. I wish I had given her more comfort. You did the best you could at the time, and it was enough. Your mother knew you loved her. But I should have done more. I should have... Michael, stop it. Stop blaming yourself for things in the past you can't change. You were young, struggling to survive, doing your best. Your mother had a hard life, yes, but she had you. And you loved her until her last day. That's more than many people have. They talked for hours there on the porch, watching the afternoon slowly fade. They talked about the past, the present, the future. They made plans. They dreamed together. You know what I want to do, Michael said at one point. I want to write a book, tell this whole story, from when I was a poor boy in your classroom until now, with the foundation and everything. It would be a beautiful book. And I want all the royalties to go to the foundation. I want every penny from the sales to be used to help more teachers. You really don't rest, do you? I learned from the best. Helen smiled, squeezing his hand. You know I'm not going to live forever, right? The question took Michael by surprise. Helen, don't say that. But it's the truth. I'm already old. I've lived a long life. And when my time comes, I want you to know that I have no regrets. I'm not afraid. I did what I came here to do. I tried to make a difference in people's lives. And I did. Especially with you. You're going to live many more years. You'll see the foundation grow. You'll see more teachers being helped. You'll see... Maybe yes, maybe no. We don't know the future. But I want you to promise me one thing, anything. Promise that you'll keep doing good. No matter what happens, no matter the difficulties, promise that you'll keep being the good person you are. I promise. And promise that you'll take care of Emily. She's a special girl. She'll need guidance, support. Her parents are good people, but they're still adjusting, still have their own struggles. Emily will need someone else, someone who believes in her. I promise I'll take care of her as if she were my own daughter. Thank you, my son. Thank you for everything. In the following months, the educators of the Future Foundation expanded tremendously. What started as a local initiative in a neighborhood of a small town in Brazil became a national movement. Foundation branches were opened in dozens of cities. Thousands of teachers were helped. The story of Michael and Helen became known throughout the country. Television programs dedicated specials to the topic. Documentaries were produced. Politicians began talking about the importance of valuing teachers. Laws were proposed to improve educators' retirement conditions. It was more than Michael had ever dreamed of. Much more. But it also brought new challenges. The foundation grew so much that sometimes it became difficult to manage everything. He had to hire more people, create more structure, establish processes. What began as something simple and straightforward was becoming complex. Sometimes I feel like we're losing the essence, Michael said to Helen during one of their conversations on the porch. In the beginning, it was just me helping you. Now there are forms, bureaucracies, committee. It's natural. When something grows, it needs structure. But that doesn't mean it's lost its essence. The essence remains the same. Helping teachers. The rest are just tools to do that more efficiently. I know, but sometimes I miss the simplicity of the beginning. Then go back to it from time to time. Step away from the offices, the meetings, the reports. Come here, sit with me, talk with the teachers who are being helped. Remember why you started all this. And Michael began doing exactly that. Once a week he would set aside all his commitments and return to that house on Maple Street. He would sit on the porch with Helen, drink coffee and talk. Sometimes they would stay silent, just watching the world go by. Other days they would talk for hours, laughing, reminiscing, planning. Emily was growing up. She was almost 10 years old now, and she was a smart, curious girl, full of dreams. She wanted to be a teacher when she grew up, inspired by her grandmother and Michael's story. You'll be a great teacher, Michael told her one day, just like your grandmother was. Do you really think so? I'm sure. You have a good heart. You want to help. That's the most important thing in a teacher. And will you help me study? Will you support me? I'll always be by your side, I promise. Time passed, 1 year, 2 years. The foundation kept growing, helping more and more people. Michael's restaurant prospered, even with all the competitors' attempts to bring it down. His life had found a purpose that went far beyond simple financial success. Helen was growing more fragile with the passing years, but she kept her spirit strong. She continued to be the family matriarch, giving advice, telling stories, inspiring everyone around her. One day, 3 years after the counterfeit bill incident, Michael went to visit her and found her quieter than usual. "Is everything all right, Mrs. Helen?" "Yes, my son, I'm just tired. I'm getting old." "Do you want me to call the doctor?" "No need. It's nothing a doctor can fix." Michael sat beside her, worried. "What are you feeling?" "Just satisfaction. You know when you feel like you've fulfilled your purpose? That's what I'm feeling." "Don't talk like that. You still have a lot to do here." Helen smiled, stroking his face. "I've done everything I had to do. I helped dozens of students. I watched you grow and become this wonderful man. I witnessed a revolution in how teachers are seen and treated. What more could I want? Your company. I want your company for many more years, and you will have it. Even when I'm no longer physically here, I'll be in your heart. I'll be in every teacher you help. I'll be in every child who benefits from the foundation. Mrs. Helen, don't be sad. I'm at peace. Completely at peace." They talked a bit more, reminiscing about moments, sharing silences. When Michael left that afternoon, he hugged Helen for a long time, as if he knew that might be one of their last embraces. But Helen remained present. A few more months, a few more conversations on the porch, a few more shared stories. She was there to see Emily turn 11. She was there when Michael's restaurant won a Social Responsibility Award. She was there when the foundation reached the milestone of helping 5,000 teachers. And on a quiet September morning, surrounded by the family she had built, Helen closed her eyes for the last time. It was a gentle passing without pain, without suffering. Just a well-lived life coming to its natural end. The wake was immense. Hundreds of people attended. Former students from decades ago, teachers who had been helped by the foundation, business people who had been inspired by the story, journalists who had covered the movement, ordinary people who had been touched by the narrative of kindness and giving back. Michael was at the center of it all, receiving condolences, but he wasn't sad. Or rather, he was sad about the loss, but at peace with the life Helen had lived. She had died knowing she had made a difference, knowing she had been loved, knowing her legacy would continue. During the burial, Michael gave a speech. Helen Wilson was much more than a teacher. She was a mother to dozens of children who had no mother. She was a friend to those in need of friendship. She was a light in dark times. And she was the person who saved me when I most needed saving. He paused, taking a deep breath to control his emotions. I could have been just another statistic, another poor boy who dropped out of school, who went down the wrong path, who amounted to nothing. But I wasn't. And I wasn't because a teacher believed in me. Because a teacher invested in me, not with the expectation of return, but simply because it was the right thing to do. He looked around, seeing the attentive faces, the tears in many eyes. It took me a long time to repay that kindness. I took so long that it was almost too late. But I learned something important in this process. It's never too late to do good. It's never too late to give thanks. It's never too late to repay kindness with kindness. He pointed to the gathered crowd. All of you are here because Helen touched your lives in some way, directly or indirectly, through the students she taught, the people she helped, or the inspiration her story brought. And the best way to honor her isn't with tears or lamentations. It's by continuing the work she started. It's by being kind. It's by helping those in need. It's by believing in people when no one else believes. He finished the speech with a choked voice. Thank you, Mrs. Helen, for everything, for saving me, for teaching me, for loving me. You will be deeply missed, but your legacy is eternal. It lives in me, in all of us, in every life you touched. Rest in peace, my dear teacher. You deserve it. In the days that followed, Michael threw himself back into the foundation's work. It was his way of dealing with the loss, of honoring Helen's memory. But this time, he did things differently. He delegated more, trusted the team more, didn't try to carry everything alone. And he focused especially on Emily. The girl was devastated by her grandmother's loss, and Michael made sure to be there for her. He helped with her studies, took her on outings, talked about feelings and missing her. He became in many ways the complimentary father figure he had promised to be. 1 year after Helen's departure, the foundation organized a special event. It was a ceremony to honor living teachers, to thank those who were still active and making a difference. Hundreds of teachers were invited, each receiving a certificate of recognition and financial assistance. Michael insisted that Emily be on stage with him, helping to hand out the certificates. This here, he told the audience, is not just about honoring the past. It's about securing the future. It's about showing today's teachers that they are valued, that their work matters, that they will not be forgotten. He pointed to Emily. This young lady here wants to be a teacher when she grows up, and I will make sure that when she graduates, when she dedicates her life to education, she won't face the hardships her grandmother faced. She will not be forgotten. She won't live in precarious conditions after retiring, because we are going to change that. We'll change the whole system if we have to. The audience gave a standing ovation. It was a moment of hope, renewal, and commitment to a better future. More years passed. The foundation continued to grow, now present in every state of Brazil. It even managed to influence public policies, contributing to the approval of laws that improved teachers' retirement conditions. Michael wrote the book he had mentioned, telling the whole story from the beginning. The book became a bestseller, and all the profits were donated to the foundation, as promised. The restaurant remained prosperous, now managed by Kevin, who had become a partner. Michael still showed up there regularly, but was no longer the center of all operations. He had learned to trust, to delegate, to live. Emily grew up and became a bright young woman. She entered the pedagogy college at 18 with a full scholarship sponsored by the foundation created by Michael. Her goal was clear: to follow in her grandmother's footsteps, to become a teacher who would make a difference in children's lives. One day, already graduated and working at a public school, Emily called Michael. "Uncle Michael, something happened today that reminded me a lot of Grandma's story with you." "What was it?" "There's a boy in my class. He's very smart but comes from a poor family. I noticed he never brings a snack, always watches the others eat. Today I brought extra food and gave it to him, pretending it was left over from my lunch." Michael felt his heart tighten with emotion. "You did the right thing. I learned from the best, and I learned from you too. Watching how you took care of Grandma, how you created the foundation, how you changed so many lives. And now you're starting to change lives too. You're continuing the cycle your grandmother started, which passed through me and now passes through you. It's strange, but I feel connected to Grandma when I do these things, as if she were there with me, guiding, teaching. She is. You can believe she is." That night, Michael went to the cemetery where Helen was buried. He did this regularly, always keeping the grave clean and with fresh flowers. He sat on the grass next to the headstone. "Hi, Mrs. Wilson. I came to share the news." He began to speak, telling her about Emily, about the foundation, about everything that had happened since his last visit. "You know, I think a lot about that day. The day Emily showed up at the restaurant with the fake bill. If she had found real money, I never would have come back here. I never would have met you again. I never would have created the foundation. My life would have taken a completely different path." He paused, looking at the darkening sky. "Sometimes I wonder if it was just luck, or bad luck, depending on how you look at it. But I don't think it was either. I think it was fate. I think somehow I needed to come back. I needed to remember where I came from. I needed to honor you the right way." He stood up, brushing off his pants. "And I continued. I am continuing, and I will continue until my last day. Because that's what you taught me. That small acts of kindness can change everything. That we should never underestimate the power of helping someone. That every life matters. Every person deserves a chance." She placed more flowers on the grave. "Thank you, Mrs. Helen, for everything. For every meal you gave me when I was hungry. For every word of encouragement when I wanted to give up. For every hug when I needed affection. For believing in me when no one else did. And for continuing to believe even when I stopped believing in myself." He turned to leave but stopped and looked back one more time. "Oh, and one more thing. I kept that bill. The fake bill that Emily tried to use. It's framed in my office next to a picture of you. Every day when I arrive, I look at that frame and remember, the money that had no value became the symbol of love that is priceless, just like you taught me. End of story. And now, dear listener, what did you think of this story? Where are you listening from? Have you ever had a teacher who changed your life? Share your experience, your memories, your emotions in the comments. Do you believe Michael made the right choices? That Helen deserved this recognition? We would love to read your honest opinion. Thank you so much for joining us on this emotional journey. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to leave your like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other stories that will move you. Your subscription helps us a lot to keep bringing quality content. Until the next story.